agriculture of the people can be linked to a river system. People depend on the fisheries. People depend on the flooding pattern for their transportation, for their farming. It's also important for the wildlife habitats. Achieving coexistence in these complex landscapes we call TFCAs. You need coordination, collaboration, and understanding.
By establishing conservation corridors between protected areas, KAZA is home to the largest contiguous transboundary elephant population in the world and provides critical habitat for other endangered lion and wild dog populations, as well as 600 species of birds. To assist in managing human-wildlife conflict and link protected areas within the TFCA, it is essential for all the countries involved to work together in harmony with nature and each other.
Collaboration is so important in the sense that animals have got no boundaries, unlike countries, so they need to have their free movement. They do migrate from time to time. Human-wildlife conflict is whereby people, the communities, and the wildlife come into confrontations in situations whereby animals would encroach into communities in search of water, for example. It also occurs when we as people now encroach into the wildlife areas and the confrontations become inevitable.
In the Angolan component of KAZA, wildlife is returning from neighboring countries after a civil war which ended in 2002, symbolizing peace and belonging among the community, of which many had never seen in their lifetime.
O impacto da guerra foi muito negativo, porque com o surgimento da guerra colocavam-se minas antipessoais e antitanques, por exemplo. Nós temos uma companhia de desminagem que tem feito a desminagem ao nível destas comunidades e essa desminagem tem ajudado bastante a questão, por exemplo, da agricultura, da conservação, da abertura dos corredores dos animais. Para mim, o KAZA é não mais um projeto transfronteiriço.
Rivers, they bring life. Without rivers, we don't have any life.
The freedom of movement by wildlife and the rivers that cut across countries, they teach us that despite having individual countries, we are just one big community.
Without coexistence, you basically be threatening the natural rhythm and harmony that you require for different species, for people, for biodiversity.
KAZA, the world's largest terrestrial conservation area. Between thundering waterfalls running through wide stretches of savanna, marsh, and rustling forest woodlands lies the Kavango and Zambezi rivers. This 520,000 square kilometer mosaic of majestic wilderness is a safari connoisseur's dream destination, with the goal of achieving a more sustainable coexistence between people and wildlife. The great nations of Angola, Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe came together in 2011 to establish the Kavango Zambezi TFCA.
Achieving coexistence in these complex landscapes we call TFCAs. You need coordination, collaboration, and understanding.
By establishing conservation corridors between protected areas, KAZA is home to the largest contiguous transboundary elephant population in the world and provides critical habitat for other endangered lion and wild dog populations, as well as 600 species of birds. To assist in managing human-wildlife conflict and link protected areas within the TFCA, it is essential for all the countries involved to work together in harmony with nature and each other.
connectivity of this entire landscape is due to the river system.
The freedom of movement by wildlife and the rivers that cut across countries, they teach us that despite having individual countries, we are just one big community.
Without coexistence, you basically be threatening the natural rhythm and harmony that you require for different species, for people, for biodiversity.
KAZA, the world's largest terrestrial conservation area. Between thundering waterfalls running through wide stretches of savanna, marsh, and rustling forest woodlands lies the Kavango and Zambezi rivers. KAZA is abundant in wildlife, scenic splendor, and the rich cultural heritage. This 520,000 square kilometer mosaic of majestic wilderness is a safari connoisseur's dream destination. With the goal of achieving a more sustainable coexistence between people and wildlife, the great nations of Angola, Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe came together in 2011 to establish the Kavango Zambezi TFCA.
Wildlife dispersal areas are very important in facilitating coordinated development and ensuring that coexistence is enhanced. I came to realize how intricately connected the culture of the people can be linked to a river system. People depend on the fisheries, people depend on the flooding pattern for their transportation, for their farming. It's also important for the wildlife habitats. Achieving coexistence in these complex landscapes we call TFCAs. You need coordination, collaboration, and understanding.
By establishing conservation corridors between protected areas, KAZA is home to the largest contiguous transboundary elephant population in the world and provides critical habitat for other endangered lion and wild dog populations, as well as 600 species of birds. To assist in managing human-wildlife conflict and link protected areas within the TFCA, it is essential for all the countries involved to work together in harmony with nature and each other.
Collaboration is so important in the sense that animals have got no boundaries, unlike countries, so they need to have their free movement. They do migrate from time to time. Human-wildlife conflict is whereby people, the communities, and the wildlife come into confrontations in situations whereby animals would encroach into communities in search of water, for example. It also occurs when we, the wildlife areas, and confrontations become inevitable.
In the Angolan component of KAZA, wildlife is returning from neighboring countries after a civil war which ended in 2002, symbolizing peace and belonging among the community, of which many had never seen in their lifetime.
O impacto da guerra foi muito negativo, porque com o surgimento da guerra colocavam-se minas antipessoais e antitanques, por exemplo. Nós temos uma companhia de desminagem que tem feito a desminagem ao nível destas comunidades e essa desminagem tem ajudado bastante a questão, por exemplo, da agricultura, da conservação, da abertura dos corredores dos animais. Para mim, o KAZA é não mais um projeto transfronteiriço que ajuda mesmo, veio para ajudar, para criar, para trazer essa harmonia, não só entre as comunidades, mas também os países. No tempo da guerra, nós foi difícil encontrar um animal, porque também tinham fugido, mas atualmente já, hoje no Parque do Lengue-Luiana, registramos manadas e manadas de búfalo, elefante e outras espécies em distinção.
Fizemos a patrulha conjunta com os fiscais namibianos e fiscais zambianos. Às vezes, quando os caçadores saltam para a Namíbia, nós ligamos para os fiscais daquele lado a dizer que entraram no ponto X, demos também às vezes as coordenadas através do GPS, tiramos as coordenadas, mandamos no sítio onde eles entraram. Então os outros lá continuam para fazer as patrulhas ao seguir o trilho dos caçadores. Essa é a vantagem. Fiscalizar, preservar a nossa fauna é muito importante para as gerações vindouras que virão também para saber. Por isso que eu estou a gostar muito do meu trabalho.
Nebulele kuli kwali nakoza kwa mulaho fale tebeza nga kuli kuona folofolo bayivulaya bayitabanisa chole kali nakoze mane sebaya batwayela na nizoda kwali nakoza kwa mulaho kweza kuli kuona to kwa hule so saba faka shekule to sekona kuyemera faka ufi mane kapa wayema ya afita kapa eba yiye miwena wako na kufita conservation farming kiabuto kwa hulu kwane kulaka ni amuhochoro ni balimi.
Before conservation farming, we used to plow a big land, but our yield was very little. Now that it's through the Peace Parks Foundation, they have introduced us with conservation farming, where we plow even a small piece of land, but our yields now is very big.
Nindava makaza kokubona kuti kandisha okubabalira ezipawo zangu okuti zive na mahitiro alukuruhite zibole okukabira mu Zambia, zibole okukabira mu Angola, zibole okukabira kwikonche omushakira monshe eshando likabe na mali abantu betu nekilikani ekibira ekikabe na macho abantu betu nezipawo zabo nichandiretero kuti kwa vitoko kuti ndikabire mu ndikopanse abantu nezipawo nezibabalira hantu honke.
We build lion-proof kraals. They should actually be called cattle-proof kraals because they keep the cattle inside. The kraals are 100% effective. And the way we do the lion-proof kraals, it's actually a 50-50 investment. The kraal recipient will provide all the poles. They are encouraged to collect dead trees that have fallen over because those are actually hardier. And then our team works with the family and whoever else wants to be involved to build the kraal structure. Beyond protecting cows, which they do, I do believe the value is also because of the investment in individuals and recognition of their way of life.
I love rivers because it's something that I grew up with in the first place. I was a full-time fisherman. My dad used to do fishing, then mom used to do the same sailing. So it's something that I understand in detail. So I'm a living example. What we normally do when we go out with our boat, we monitor and record the catches. So what we normally do, after having checked through their crates, we say, just as you can see it in the crates, it's because of the illegal catching fish. That's what it has led to this fishing now being found in small numbers. The problem with using the mosquito nets, it sweeps away everything. Whatever goes in that mosquito net will never come out. So it means it may be an insect, a snake, or even the smallest fish.
Lwabaiza sensitize batu kubaluta kuli ba ikolu siseni kuziba kuli likaze kisabona kima benefits sabona kima benefits abaikulu babona kima benefits za generation yabona then makusona yakusibu kusabeleksa batu basona yakuba batela nzira yemu yakuli nibona bayezengi.
I would explain conservation as doing everything that is necessary to ensure that we remain alive on planet Earth. It's my personal belief that conservation is everybody's business.
Along with its abundant wildlife and rich cultures, KAZA is also a world-class tourism destination, linking key wildlife and cultural attractions for all who visit.
I'm so proud to be an employer based in this KAZA region. It makes me so joyful to be able to give back to my country through the KAZA region. If we make it easy for people to move freely, then we are guaranteed of more business. We are guaranteed of bettering our economy. I think the people, when they see the falls for the first time, they feel like they are in some very special place. And indeed, they are at a special place.
To ensure that not only wildlife, but also people and tourists can move freely across borders, the KAZA Univisa was launched between Zambia and Zimbabwe.
The goal of the Univisa is to facilitate movement of tourists within the KAZA visa countries, and also to promote regional tourism growth. The KAZA Univisa brings a lot of benefits to the community, because when these tourists come, they also spend, and whatever they spend, it will benefit the community, it will benefit the stakeholders in the tourism industry. If the ideas of Transfrontier conservation are allowed to expand, we are going to see more revenue generation among countries in the Transfrontier conservations. We are also going to see less of crime that involves wildlife, ranging from poaching, ranging from smuggling. Countries will be collaborating. They will be working together towards a common goal of conserving wildlife and nature.
Transfrontier conservation, it means bringing together the 5 countries in protecting the wild animals, the wild natural areas that we have, bringing them together to look after them and also to benefit the communities that are living in those areas.
One of the many lessons that we can learn from the behavior of animals in these transboundary areas is the issue of their movement across borders. Their movement is dictated by the natural rhythm, the flooding patterns, for example. So the issue of connectivity is essential.
It's the wrong perception to say the river divides us. It is actually the river that brings the countries together, because it is on the basis of the river that these countries converge.
Wildlife corridor, it means the corridors that we have in our villages, in our township, in our remote areas that allow animals to move from one point to another without being disturbed.
KAZA represents living proof that by being in tune with nature, we play our role in preserving rich and diverse ecosystems that will continue to live on for generations to come. Here in KAZA.
Rivers, they bring life. Without rivers, we don't have any life.
They are the life's blood of the wildlife in this area. I mean, there are many animals that do live away from the rivers in the forests, but the connectivity of this entire landscape is due to the river system.
The freedom of movement by wildlife and the rivers that cut across countries, they teach us that despite having individual countries, we are just one big community.
Without coexistence, you basically be threatening the natural rhythm and harmony that you require for different species, for people, for biodiversity.
KAZA, the world's largest terrestrial conservation area. Between thundering waterfalls running through wide stretches of savanna, marsh, and rustling forest woodlands lies the Kavango and Zambezi rivers. KAZA is abundant in wildlife, scenic splendor, and the rich cultural heritage. This 520,000 square kilometer mosaic of majestic wilderness is a safari connoisseur's dream destination. With the goal of achieving a more sustainable coexistence between people and wildlife, the great nations of Angola, Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe came together in 2011 to establish the Kavango Zambezi TFCA.
Wildlife dispersal areas are very important in facilitating coordinated development and ensuring that coexistence is enhanced. I came to realize how intricately connected the culture of the people.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon. And sincere apologies. Please, can we rise while the honorable ministers and heads of delegations join us? Thank you. Thank you. And before we are seated, we will begin with the Zambia national anthem. Thank you. Before we are seated, we will then proceed with the AU anthem.
I believe we're having technical issues. We'll proceed. Please be seated. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Netsai Borman. I'm the program manager at the KAZA Secretariat and will be supporting the partner states as we move through the program this afternoon. In terms of protocol, we'll begin with salutations. We would like to acknowledge the Honorable Sikumba, Minister of Tourism, Zambia, Honorable Kereng, Minister of Environment and Tourism, Botswana, Honorable Sibungo, Deputy Minister of Environment, Forestry and Tourism, Namibia, Director General Dr. Mangwanya from Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Management Authority, Head of Delegation, Dr. Lisboa from Angola, members of the Diplomatic Corps, here present and attending online, our SADC representatives, senior officials, permanent secretaries from the KAZA Partner States, the directors of wildlife from the KAZA Partner States, co-chairs of the African Elephant Specialist Group, our executive director, KAZA Secretariat, and his team, myself included. And very importantly, we would like to especially acknowledge representatives of the survey financing partners without whom the survey may not have been possible. That's WWF, the implementing partner for the survey, the KAZA Elephant Survey donors and international cooperating partners comprising the Paul G. Allen Family Foundation, the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development through KfW, the Dutch Postcode Lottery through the Dream Fund, USAID's Combating Wildlife Crime Project in Namibia and the Kavango Zambezi area, the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, the Environment and Protected Areas Authority of Sharjah, UAE, the US Fish and Wildlife Service, WWF US, Pantera, and the EU-funded CITES MIC program. Distinguished representatives of international cooperating partners and donors, representatives of international, regional, and local non-state actors and NGOs, representatives of our community-based organizations in KAZA, our CBOs, the media, and the general public following the launch via YouTube live streaming. Thank you for your attendance today, and we especially acknowledge you. With those remarks, I will hand over to our KAZA coordinating country, Chair of the KAZA Ministerial Committee, Honorable Sikumba, MP, Minister of Tourism, to deliver his welcoming remarks. Thank you.
Please be seated. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll try it the next time. Good afternoon, everyone. There we go. I'm not sure if we had our lunch or we were tired waiting for this particular event to happen. But most importantly, we're very excited to having each and every one of you in here. But before I go to my welcome remarks, ladies and gentlemen, if you could allow me to just recognize individuals in here who are present, including everybody else. I'll start by recognizing the presence of my colleague ministers in here who form part of the KAZA TFCA. I will start with Honorable Filda Kareng, Minister of Environment and Tourism in Botswana, who's with us here. I also recognize my colleague, Honorable Heather Sibungo, the Deputy Minister of Environment, Forestry and Tourism in Namibia. I also recognize other party states who are represented by their senior officials. Here we're talking about the Director General of Zimpax from Zimbabwe. And I believe in our midst we have His Excellency Albino Malongo, the Ambassador to Zambia from Angola. I also want to recognize my Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism in Zambia, who's with us here, Mr. Evans Mohanga, and also the local leadership here in Livingstone where we're having this particular launch. In here we have Her Worship the Mayor of the City of Livingstone, who obviously is very happy that you are gracing your presence here in Livingstone, Madam Constance Nalisheva Mleabai. I also have in our midst the local leadership in the name of the District Commissioner, Madam Eunice Nawa. We have members of the Diplomatic Corps, I believe, who are in our midst. We have our representatives from SADC. I believe most of them are actually joining us online. You are recognized senior officials, permanent secretaries from the KAZA Partner States, the directors of wildlife in the KAZA Partner States, the co-chairs of the Elephant Specialist Group, equally recognized, the executive director of KAZA, who has managed to convene us here in Livingstone, representative of the survey financing partners, distinguished guests, members of the press, you colleagues of ours who are always available to disseminate information for us far and wide, especially this particular launch that we're witnessing today. I welcome you to Livingstone, the tourist capital of Zambia, and it is not by design or rather hook or crook that Livingstone is the tourist town of Zambia, and this particular town itself happens to be my constituency as area member of parliament. So it's a double whammy for me, and I'm happy that you're here to actually be with us. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as chair, coordinating chair of the Kavango Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area, and indeed the KAZA Partner States, I do extend my heartfelt welcome to this beautiful town. I was having a chat with my colleague ministers that this launch today is very exciting, and I am hoping that those of you who've just come to Livingstone for the first time, some of you who've just come to Zambia for the first time, please find time to actually enjoy our natural endowments that Livingstone has to offer. Distinguished guests, we are convened here to mark a very, very significant milestone, and this is the unveiling of the findings of the 2022 KAZA Elephant Survey report. This report is a product culminating from several years of efforts by KAZA Secretariat and its partner states. Most of you will believe that a semblance of a survey report like this one was only attempted in 2014, 2015, but obviously the difference between this particular survey, you will hear from the specialists, is that the methodology that we use this time around is very, very consistent with the 5-party states. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the partner states and the implementing partners, Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF Namibia, in August 2022, the first flight for the survey took off in Zimbabwe, initiating an extensive aerial survey that spanned all 5 partner states. Some of you will know that we had one partner state where we had a bit of a challenge to do our aerial survey, but eventually we managed to achieve that. The principal objective of the survey was to achieve a precise and accurate estimate of the number of live elephants in the KAZA TFCA. The survey also had secondary objectives related to estimating the number of elephant carcasses and other large herbivores, wild as well as domestic, in their spatial distribution. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as KAZA Partner States, we set out to pursue a rigorous science-based process and produce credible output and outcomes, a goal which I believe we have accomplished. And I think for a very long time, whenever we are out there trying to justify certain proposals that we've had, each and every one of us who we go out to, be it the financiers, the sponsors, or rather big meetings such as these ones, the SADC, the AU, CITES, we were challenged as regards to how scientific our numbers were. And this, I believe, is one particular accomplishment that I strongly feel we need to be very, very happy about. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a sheer scale and scope of this undertaking is unprecedented. Covering 60% of the 520,000 square kilometers, KAZA landscape through coordinated and standardized surveys was a remarkable achievement. Now that just pretty much gives you a scope of the kind of work that our colleagues were doing in partnership with all party states, flying over an expansive terrain, meticulously adhering to rigorous scientific standards while surveying Africa's largest contiguous elephant population. It is a testament of collective dedication and perseverance for all who were involved. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon is therefore not only a launch of a survey report, but also a celebration of the successful completion of a significant project and the outcomes that it has yielded. You will shortly be listening to a presentation that I am confident that each and every one of us will be very amazed, and you concur with me that the assertions that I alluded to earlier are such that this particular survey is something that will make us very proud as Africa, as KAZA. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, while a comprehensive KAZA ministerial communique will be issued at the end of this event this afternoon, I wish to take this opportunity to express my profound gratitude, and on behalf of my fellow ministers sitting here and those of others who are joining us online, I extend my heartfelt appreciation to everyone who played a significant role in this monumental project. Your contributions have culminated in the successful completion to this endeavor within budget and within time. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for a kind attention, and I'm looking forward to celebrating, popping the champagne after we launch this particular survey. I thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Honorable Sikumba, for those remarks. Before we proceed with the program, we kindly request that all media clear their cameras from the front of the room. Our partners, funders, implementing partners and partner states would like a clear view of what they've traveled to see, which is our presentation from the coordinator. We will await this before we continue with the program. Thank you. They need to. Thank you. With that said, thank you, Honorable Minister, for those wonderful remarks. We will now give over to Darren Potgieter. He is our KAZA Elephant Survey Coordinator, who led and oversaw in close collaboration with the Secretariat and Partner States implementation of the KAZA Elephant Survey. Darren, over to you. We all look forward to sharing the results. Thank you.
Thank you, Netsai, and good afternoon, everyone. So could I please ask the technicians there to get the presentation ready for us? Super, thank you. Yeah, so I'm very pleased to be here today to present the results from this immense survey that we carried out last year. I'm sure it's been long anticipated, and I look forward to sharing the results with you. After this presentation, you will be all handed the very extensive survey report. It's a 200-page document that contains all the details that you could wish for. But during this talk, we're going to focus on the key insights that we gained during this exercise, focusing particularly on elephants. So for those unfamiliar, the Kavango Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area is the largest terrestrial conservation area in the world, and it's home to the largest contiguous or meter population of elephants. So just to give you a bit of orientation, many of you are familiar with KAZA, but here's a map that outlines the KAZA Transfrontier Conservation Area. It's 520,000 square kilometers, so that's roughly the size of France. It's an enormous area, and it's made up of a very diverse network of ecosystems and protected areas, as we can see in this map here. So why did we conduct this survey? What was the motivation behind the KAZA aerial survey of 2022? As the Honourable Minister alluded to earlier, it's been many years in the making. But let's rewind to 2019, to the strategic planning framework for the management and conservation of elephants, where the KAZA Partner States agreed to manage the KAZA elephants as one contiguous population. And in that framework document, they highlighted the aerial survey as an important action. And the reason for that is, in order to effectively manage this contiguous meter population, we needed to understand it, we needed to have updated information on the elephant population. So while former surveys have been invaluable in giving us information on elephants and other wildlife, there are some gaps. And what this map illustrates is the dates of the most recent survey carried out across this very large area. And what I'd like to draw your attention to is the fact that surveys previously have been carried out in different years. In many cases, the surveys have used slightly different methodologies. And all of this makes comparison across this huge area very difficult. And in addition to that, this patchwork approach didn't address the fact that there is significant movement of elephants from one country to another, particularly in the border area between Zimbabwe and Botswana, and also through Botswana into the Kavango Zambezi region of Namibia and beyond into Angola and Zambia. So what this survey aimed to do was provide a cohesive approach to address these data gaps. And the specific objectives of this survey were, firstly, to provide a relatively accurate and precise estimate of elephants in the KAZA TFCA. And then secondary objectives were to estimate elephant carcasses and other large herbivores. That includes other wildlife and livestock. And finally, to provide the spatial distribution of elephants, elephant carcasses, and other wildlife. So again, we're looking at the KAZA Transfrontier Conservation Area. In the background, we have a map of land cover. And what we've highlighted here is the area that was surveyed during this project. And that's shown as the area in the red crosshatch. And it covers 60% of the KAZA TFCA. And that survey area was determined based on the results from former aerial surveys, but also using telemetry data that spans a period of over 10 years with more than or nearly 300 collared elephants, but also through consultation with experts that work in the region to make sure that this aerial survey covers the known dry season range of elephants in the KAZA landscape, so that we are confident we covered the entire population that occur in this TFCA. So you've heard the survey being described as the first ever KAZA-wide survey. So I'd like to just unpack that a little bit. So KAZA-wide, this is the first time that the elephant population that occurs in this Transfrontier conservation area has been assessed in one single effort. And more specifically, it was done following standardized methods. And the survey was also synchronized. So I mentioned earlier the fact that there are important movements of elephants from one country to another. And the synchronized aspect of our approach to this survey made sure that we effectively covered the areas across international borders to ensure that significant numbers of elephants weren't counted twice or miscounted or undercounted. And then finally, given the scale of this project with nearly 50 field teams, 7 aircraft operating over this enormous landscape covering 5 countries, it had to be coordinated. And this aerial survey was coordinated under the management of the KAZA Secretariat. So I'd just like to give you guys some background as to how the survey was conducted. It's very important for you to understand the lengths we went to ensure the credibility of this survey. And firstly, just to give you some background on how these surveys are conducted, for the vast majority of the KAZA TFCA, we used what is called a stratified transect sampling, and where the aircraft flies over the landscape following evenly spaced transects, and elephants are counted from the aircraft with a crew of 4 people, with 2 people sitting in the rear of the aircraft, the rear seat observers, counting elephants. And we have cameras that are also mounted on the inside, taking photographs of large herds to be verified to ensure that the counts are accurate. And then for the mountainous area in Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe, we used a slightly different method where this type of flying is not possible because of the terrain, and we used block counts there. But this methodology has been used to survey elephants and wildlife in Africa since the 70s. But what we did was to take it one step further and to ensure that what we were doing was standardized across all crews and aircraft over the entire KAZA region, so that we were able to have data that is comparable. So I'd just like to emphasize the aspect of standardization again. So we ensured that all the crews were using the same high quality equipment, and that the crews that were participating all met minimum criteria in terms of their experience and eyesight and their ability to identify and count species. And very importantly, this survey was conducted to adhere to the recently updated aerial survey standards that are laid out by the CITES MIC program. And so in order to ensure that all the teams adhered to those standards, we took it one step further to establish SOPs in the form of the KAZA Elephant Survey Manual. And this basically provided crews with a step-by-step procedure to follow to make sure that everyone is standardized and adhering to the internationally accepted CITES MIC aerial survey standards. So before the survey was launched, we carried out a training and evaluation workshop in Kasane in July. And this was an important part of making sure that we got qualified and experienced crew to participate in the survey. So we had more than 70 participants that came to Kasane, where over several days they were involved in various evaluations and training. And from that, we selected the top candidates to participate in the aerial survey. So I mentioned earlier the importance of coordination given the scale of this project. And so to ensure that we were able to effectively coordinate all these moving parts across the 5 countries, we set up an operations room in Kasane at the Kasane Wildlife Office, which was very kindly made available to us by the Botswana Department of Wildlife and National Parks. And so in this office and operations room, we set up systems that enabled us to track the teams in real time using satellite tracking. It also provided a means to communicate with teams even in areas where there was no cell phone reception. So it provided us with the necessary tools to ensure that there was adequate coordination during the survey. But in addition to that, it served as a data hub where we were able to make evaluations of the quality of the data that was coming in. And so in this operations room, my colleague and co-author of the report, Elsa Bussier, oversaw a team of data analysts that were seconded to us from the partner states. And so we had a team of 6 people that were operating in the operations room, and as data was coming in from the field, they were evaluating it to make sure that we were getting quality data coming in. And I'd just like to give you an example of what that looked like. So on a daily basis, after every single flight, the team would look at how well the survey was performed. So in the top panel over there, you can make out some red lines. Those are the transects that the pilots were meant to fly. And then in black, laid over that, we have the actual flight track of the aircraft. And so we can see there you can't distinguish the two. They were extremely well flown transects. And then in the panel below, what we are looking at is how well the pilot maintained his target speeds and the target height. So during an aerial survey, it's very important, and that's why these standards are set up. The faster you fly, the more difficult it is going to be to count animals. And so these targets have been established after years of experience with these methodologies. And so we were looking at how well the teams were conducting the survey. And beyond the work of the pilots, we also looked at how well the rear seat observers were performing. And so one would expect during an aerial survey that your observers on the left and right of the plane would be counting similar numbers of animals. And so this was one way that we were evaluating the observers. And in this case, which is from a flight carried out in Matabele land, we can see that we have a balanced percentage of observations on the bottom. And so the important thing that I'd like to demonstrate here is that this was carried out on a daily basis in near real time after every single flight to make sure that there were no egregious errors and that we had quality data coming in. And yeah, I would just like to add that to my knowledge, this is the first time in an aerial survey that this level of detail has been done in terms of quality assessment. Certainly in terms of it being done in near real time. So another important point I'd like to make is the level of transparency and collaboration that was fostered on the survey. So the partner states were involved in every aspect of the survey, from its conception through to the planning, execution, and data analysis. And the partner states seconded the staff that participated in the field. So we had a team of nearly 50 staff operating in the field, and more than half of those were seconded by the partner states. In addition to that, in the operations room, our colleagues from the partner states worked on that data quality check, but also the data analysis. And so in addition to the involvement of the partner states, in this collaboration we also had private parties like myself and the involvement of NGOs and other conservation experts that participated in this aerial survey. So the survey execution, these surveys are conducted in the dry season. It's very important that they are done at a time when visibility is best. So in the dry season, most of the leaves have fallen from the trees and we have improved visibility. During the KAZA aerial survey, we started in late August and conducted the survey going through September and into October. And very importantly, we managed to finish the aerial survey before any major rainfall across the region. This is important because rain can disrupt flying, but more importantly, rainfall can cause significant movements of wildlife, elephants in particular. And so we are very happy with the fact that we achieved our objective of finishing the survey before major rains could disrupt any movement of elephants. So I'm going to let this animation run for a while, and while it's doing that, I'll explain what we're looking at here. So this is the progress of the survey crews across the KAZA TFCA. The survey started on the 22nd of August in the Zimbabwe region in Zimbabwe. I'm not too sure I can move over there, but just pointing it out, we can see the survey starting in Zimbabwe and Zambia, moving generally in a westward direction. So as each one of these survey strata or polygons were flown and completed, they show up as yellow. So I'll just let that run through a little bit more for you to appreciate how the survey was executed. And here I'd like to give you a sense of the scale. The Honourable Minister alluded to some of the figures about this immense undertaking. Just to give you an idea, we mentioned the 60% of the KAZA TFCA that was sampled. It's over 300,000 square kilometers that was surveyed in over 2,400 transects, which is nearly 70,000 kilometers. So the teams that participated in the survey, counting animals on transects, did so, and if they had been flying around the world, they would have gone around nearly twice. It's a huge amount of effort that was put in there. And so to do that, it took nearly 200 flights, 195 flights using 7 aircraft, 700 hours of survey flying, 45,000 liters of avgas that had to be stationed across 16 bases in this enormous area. So a huge amount of logistics that went into this as well. And finally, the 47 field staff, of which more than half came from the government partner states. And those teams made nearly 27,000 individual observations, counting over 200,000 individual animals. So, yeah, some very impressive numbers for a very big survey. And yeah, now we get into the part that I think everyone has been waiting for. And so I'm very pleased to share with you now the results. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll be focusing on elephants. The same type of information that I'm going to present on elephants is also available for other species. And all of that is detailed extensively in the survey report. So this is a map of the distribution of elephants in KAZA as observed during this aerial survey. This data allowed us to produce an estimate of the total number of elephants in KAZA. And we estimated the elephants to be 227,900, give or take 7%. So the objective of the survey was to provide this landscape overview of the elephants and the elephant population. But we were also able to provide details at smaller scales, and I'm going to go through how the different countries in the KAZA area contribute to this total number. Starting at the bottom with Botswana, so 58% of the 227,900 elephants were found in Botswana. So the Botswana estimate is just over 130,000. 9% of the elephants were estimated in Namibia with just over 21,000. Angola has nearly 6,000 elephants as estimated in the survey, which makes up nearly 3% of the KAZA total. In Zambia, from the sample survey, we estimated 3,840 elephants, and that's just over 2% of the population. And finally, in Zimbabwe, we have just over 65,000 elephants, and that's 29% of the KAZA total. So 227,900 elephants, that is a lot of elephants, but not an unexpected amount. So let's look at some of the recent data from the past. So what we have here is the results from this KAZA Elephant survey. And alongside that, we present the data that was included in the 2016 African Elephant Status Report. So the important conclusion that we have drawn from this survey is that overall, across KAZA, the elephant population appears to be stable. However, there is some variation within the different regions, and we can see that looking at these figures here. Some areas have shown possibly increases in elephant numbers, most remain stable, and for some areas, potentially a decrease in elephant numbers. I'm sure we will get back to this during the questions and answers session, but I'd like to move on to a particular part of Zambia and quickly touch on the numbers we see for Zambia. So during this aerial survey, while we conducted the survey over the Sioma ecosystem, during the sample count, we didn't encounter any elephants. However, it was known from elephant collar data that there are elephants occurring outside of the area that we'd surveyed. And so we conducted a reconnaissance flight. And this photograph was taken just north of Sioma during one of those reconnaissance flights. And this is of a herd of over 500 elephants. We counted 508 elephants from photographs in this herd just north of Sioma, and found two other groups of males. And so for the Sioma ecosystem from our reconnaissance flights, we have a minimum number of 552 elephants. And that is not reflected in the total we see here. So if we add the 552, we have nearly 4,400 for Zambia. I thought it's important to point that out because Sioma in the past, due to various reasons that we can get into during the questions and answers, has produced varying results for elephants. But just briefly, it's partly due to the fact that the elephants are aggregated in very large herds. So like in that instance, we had 508 elephants in one single herd. And that can easily be missed during an aerial transect survey, for example. So just further to that, we also conducted two other reconnaissance flights for the same purpose of investigating the presence of elephants in areas where it was not known for higher numbers to occur. So these are almost investigative flights. But just to summarize for you, in Botswana, very much in line with what has been done in previous surveys in that area, a recce flight was flown along the Boteti River southwards towards Rakops, where we counted 288 elephants. And then just south of here, across the border in Zimbabwe, in the Fuller Forest area around Victoria Falls, we also conducted a reconnaissance flight there where we found 32 elephants. And our consensus, having flown that, is that it's primarily a wet season habitat, but these offer some minimum numbers for those areas. So a very important secondary objective of this aerial survey was to estimate elephant carcasses. So this map shows the distribution of elephant carcasses as they were observed during this aerial survey, and it provided us with an estimate of 26,641 elephants. So elephant carcasses give us important additional information to the elephant population and what is happening. And very importantly, we used this figure for the carcass estimate to, sorry, just bear with me, going the wrong way, to calculate carcass ratio. So the carcass ratios are a percentage of the dead elephants to total elephants, so live plus dead. And what that gives us is an indication of elephant mortality. The figure that we got for the KAZA overall population is 10.47%. That's a high number, higher than what one would like to see, and it may be indicative of high mortality. And for me, it's important to raise this as a red flag for the health of the population. And it's important that we conduct further investigation to understand the underlying reasons for this high level of mortality. It's important to point out that this mortality is likely to be due to a combination of factors. It could be due to the fact that we have a senescent or aging population. It's also likely due to be the result of disease. It could be the result of habitat loss and fragmentation, natural factors in addition to disease such as drought, but also importantly, it could also be due to poaching. And so from the aerial survey data, we can't draw any firm conclusions on that just yet, but it is very important that this is investigated further, and I caution people not to jump to conclusions as to the underlying factors, because those might very likely distract us from what could really be happening here. And I think it is important that further research is carried out to understand that. But some light in this scenario is that a large proportion of the carcasses that we found were old or very old carcasses, and relatively few fresh and recent carcasses. So fresh and recent carcasses are from elephants that are thought to have died within the year leading up to the survey. And so whatever the reasons are for the mortality or the higher level of mortality, what we can see from the different proportions of category 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 carcasses is that it's likely to be something that's happened in the past, and there isn't an indication of any serious mortality happening presently or in the year leading up to this aerial survey. So I'd like to just summarize the key points from what I've just presented there. So from this aerial survey and looking at data from the recent past, particularly from the data that was incorporated into the 2016 African Elephant Specialist Group, we can say that the overall elephant population in KAZA is stable. However, there is some variation or heterogeneity across the region. As I said, some areas may be experiencing increases, others stable, and some areas possibly declines in numbers. So high carcass ratios in some areas warrant further investigation. They suggest that there is elevated mortality. And it's very important that we look at this in more detail to understand the drivers of high mortality, to ensure that adequate mitigation measures are taken in the case that it is indeed due to high mortality and not an artifact from methodology, for example. So where do we go next? I think it's very important that we leverage this data from this aerial survey together with the work that's been done on connectivity and fences to provide evidence-based policy that will ensure long-term survival of elephants in the landscape. I think that this landscape approach and cross-border collaboration is more important now than ever, not only for the conservation of elephants and other wildlife, but also for the health of these ecosystems and the communities that live in the KAZA Transfrontier Conservation Area. And so, with the view to the future, I would like to just draw your attention to a very important component of our long-term objectives here, and that is habitat and habitat connectivity. So in this map, again, we present the distribution of elephants as we observed during this aerial survey. In addition to that, we've overlaid our observations of livestock, so cattle, sheep and goats, donkeys, etc. And then we've extracted a layer, which is shown in red there, of human settlement, basically. It's a percentage cover of buildings. And so what I'd like to point out here, and it's important, is that we see a segregation between elephants and people. So where there are lots of people and lots of livestock, we don't see elephants. This is also mirrored in the next slide, where we are presenting the relative abundance of livestock and wildlife. So what we see in this map, in the green areas, we have areas that are dominated by wildlife, and in the yellow and orange areas, we have those that are dominated by livestock. So 100% orange means 100% livestock, and vice versa. For the very dark green shades, we have 100% wildlife. And further to what I pointed out in the previous slide, I'd like to illustrate how this landscape is under a threat from further fragmentation. And it's very important to ensure that corridors and policies are in place that will ensure long-term connectivity in this landscape. In particular, the Zambezi, the Kavango Zambezi region in Namibia, we can see there separates Angola and Zambia from northern Botswana. And we can see an increase or a high number, for example, of livestock in the eastern part of that area. And should that continue across there, we threaten connectivity between Botswana and Angola. I'm just going to go back to the previous slide to show you the same area. So in that picture there, we can see the elephants along the Kwando system. I'm just going to move over there to show you. Unfortunately, I don't have a pointer, but this is the area that I'm talking about, which is critical for connectivity and the long-term survival of elephants, which need to be able to move from areas of high density into Angola and Zambia. And we can see here Thank you very much. Okay. I don't like pointers, but that's why. It doesn't work on the white background. Okay, so anyway, you have the area that I was talking about, and we can see high human settlement, high numbers of livestock, and that area is critical for future movement of elephants and elephant conservation. So it's equally important that we maintain connection between Kafue and the Zimbabwe regions, and the survey provided valuable data in estimating livestock numbers and providing this relative abundance of them, but also the ratio between livestock and wildlife for KAZA, which is an important index going into the future, monitoring these trends. So I'd just like to, in conclusion, run through some of the achievements from this aerial survey. So firstly, we met our primary and secondary objectives, providing a precise and accurate estimate of the elephant population and estimating elephant carcasses and other wildlife and their distribution. For me, it's particularly important to highlight that we achieved our target of percentage relative precision of less than 10%. So what that means for the elephant population, we estimated 227,900 elephants, plus or minus 7%, so plus or minus 16,700 elephants. So that gives us a lot of confidence in our result, and it's an important outcome from this aerial survey. Also, for the first time, we now have this snapshot across the whole of KAZA for this transboundary meter population. And not only for elephants, but also for other species of wildlife and livestock. We have new baseline population data, and importantly, it sets a benchmark for future surveys, not only in terms of the baseline data that we have there, that trends can be monitored from in future surveys, but also the rigor that we went to ensure a quality outcome of this survey in terms of standardization, the synchronized aspect and coordination certainly provides a benchmark for a future survey of KAZA, but all of this information on how the survey was conducted is detailed in the survey report and will definitely be valuable for other people conducting surveys elsewhere. And then very importantly, we have a very, very rich and well-organized database, which is going to provide some very valuable insights in future research. And for example, when talking about further investigation required for elephant carcasses, there's a rich data set where additional analyses can take place. And as mentioned, not only for elephants, but for other wildlife species and domestic livestock. And then throughout the course of this aerial survey, it really fostered some strengthened collaboration and ties between the partner states with the common goal of working towards a unified effort of conservation and improved capacity among the partner states for aerial surveys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Potgieter. I think just to, before we move, we've got a slight change in the program, and before we do that, I think just to really acknowledge on behalf of the Secretariat and the technical experts, partner states, directors, you know what we went through. And I think this project was a testament of real collaboration and full dedication from the partner states to drop everything to prioritize the survey as and when we need it. I think it was a testament of adaptive management. We're all very proud, and it was an absolute pleasure working with Darren and his team and the partner state experts who I think we haven't really appreciated the significance of the in-kind investment from the countries, Botswana, who hosted our ops room, and the teams that they had to manage without, making sure they were overseeing their elephant survey. So thank you, Darren. And I think a round of applause to ourselves, to partner states, our implementing partners, for successful implementation. And a very special thank you also to our implementing partners who are in the room that know what we went through and were answering the phone when we had challenges here and there and shared their data with us in support of successful implementation. So with that said, we would like to disrupt the program slightly. Darren, you're now finding out that we're asking you to hand over our survey report to our heads of delegation. Just a short handover ceremony, if we can start with that before we proceed with the program. Doc, are you participating? If we can harass you to come up with us.
So at this moment, we would invite the honorable ministers and heads of delegation to come and receive the reports. So Darren, you're going to handshake. This is a ceremonial part of this launch. So we have the honorable ministers and the heads of delegation, and we would request you to begin from the chair, Honorable Skumba, coming in this direction, And I'll just quickly encourage you to do that. Thank you. Nitsai, you can join him. So a photo session, Nitsai? Photo session before we proceed, we invite
Can we invite the Permanent Secretary Zambia to come up and model for us with our delegation, just for a quick photo opportunity? PS Zambia.
Okay, the directors present. And survey coordinator.
And the coordinator. In the middle? On the side there?
You're missing
I don't know how to do any of that.
Sorry, what do we do?
I don't know. Oh, the lights.
The lights, yeah, we can get it.
Okay. Can you turn the screen off? Can we turn the screen off for a second just for the photo? Thank you.
So the report now will be circulated as we start this.
So just to confirm that everyone here today will be receiving a hard copy and a soft copy of the survey report, which should also, by the time we close this event, be available on the KAZA website. So you will all receive a hard copy and a soft copy. So we've got this disruption, and then we'll come back to questions and answers. African elephants, and then the country, so you can be seated. Thank you, Darren. Yeah, it was good. The next item on our program is just to have some short remarks from the African Elephant Specialist Group, represented by Malvin Caridoso. If you could please come up, thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Malvin Caridoso from Connected Conservation Zimbabwe. I'm here representing the co-chairs of the African Elephant Specialist Group, Professor Rob Sloto and Dr. Ben Okita. So my presentation is on the African Elephant Specialist Group's role and recommendations, as well as endorsement of the area of census. The IUCN African Elephant Specialist Group comprises of 95 elephant experts from across range states globally. Besides assisting range states, the group is mandated by CITES to provide expert advice, including reporting on elephant population data, trends, and distribution. The African Elephant Specialist Group houses the African Elephant Database, to which range states submit data on their elephant populations, and there is a rigorous verification process undertaken by our data review working group. We also house the African Elephant Library. The African Elephant Specialist Group periodically produces status reports on the species, the last one being published in 2016. The group is finalizing the forest elephant status report and is working on the savanna elephant status report, which was delayed in order to include the results of this KAZA survey. The African Elephant Specialist Group also undertakes the global red list assessment of the 2 species under the IUCN. Importance of the KAZA Elephant Survey. Number 1, the IUCN African Elephant Specialist Group would like to formally recognize the expert efforts of the KAZA Secretariat and partners to plan and execute a science-led systematic dry season area of sample survey of 5 countries, Angola, Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. With a combined area of more than 500,000 square kilometers and home to the largest contiguous population of African savanna elephants on the continent, this region is naturally at the heart of the species conservation, integral to its recovery, and vital to its future range-wide. We recognize that this regional survey is novel for several reasons, including it is the first time the entire landscape of all 5 countries included have been systematically surveyed within a highly condensed period. Synchronizing dry season surveys across the entire landscape is important for gaining as complete and accurate a picture as possible of how many and where more than half of the world's African savanna elephants are, a priority of the IUCN African Elephant Specialist Group. In their presentation at the Kasane so it is important for gaining as a complete and accurate as a picture as possible of how many and where more than half of these world's African savanna elephants are, a priority of the group. In their 2016 African Elephant Status Report, emphasized and reiterated by the African Elephant Specialist Group in their presentation at the Kasane Elephant Summit in Botswana in 2019. Excitingly, the KAZA survey also included cutting-edge camera-based counting methods alongside conventional methods that were processed using artificial intelligence algorithms to help validate and advance this technique. Capitalizing on opportunity to explore new methods such as these that may bring faster, cheaper, and more precise results is a strength of the KAZA Secretariat and its partners that is likely to pay dividends for not just the savanna elephant monitoring, but also likely applicable to numerous other wildlife found in similarly open habitats across the globe in the future. Credibility of the survey report. The KAZA Secretariat has been engaging with the African Elephant Specialist Group during the planning, fundraising, and survey processes. For example, the African Elephant Specialist Group recommended expert external reviewers of the survey report to vet its quality, whereas a number of the group's members in their individual and institutional capacities were involved in various stages of the survey processes. The results confirm the African Elephant Specialist Group's preliminary population trends reports of stable to increasing. They further confirm the 2021 Red List assessment of African elephants that reported a stable or growing KAZA elephant population and the largest single population of the savanna elephant species on the continent. The group takes note of the remarks by the KAZA Secretariat on the levels of elephant population increase recorded in this survey. We stand ready to provide technical support in the final analysis of this survey data in order to understand the underlying reasons for the reported levels of population growth. Important use of the survey data. The KAZA Secretariat will submit the survey data to the African Elephant Database, and the African Elephant Specialist Group will undertake internal quality assurance prior to accessioning the data. The data will immediately be used for the Savannah Elephant Status Report, which will be finalized for release in 2024. The data will also be used for any reporting that the African Elephant Specialist Group does to CITES, such as through the Mike 80s Technical Advisory Group. The data will also be included into the next Red List assessment. The data will also be important in updating the 5 countries' national elephant action plans under the African Elephant Action Plan, and the group stands ready to assist with these processes. Besides the broad analysis for the report, there are many more specific analyses that could be done on the data, and the African Elephant Specialist Group is keen to support the KAZA Secretariat to undertake such work. We believe that this will be ideal opportunity to place 2 interns with the KAZA Secretariat to assist with this process and to build new capacity and expertise in undertaking such analysis. We will engage further with the Secretariat in this regard. We encourage the KAZA Secretariat to make the data openly available so that independent researchers can also conduct the analysis. This would assist and catalyze conservation planning and decision making. In closing, this survey report will provide a critical benchmark on the status of the largest single population of elephants, and the African Elephant Specialist Group is confident in the results that have been presented. We encourage the KAZA Secretariat to start planning for the next survey in order to ensure that there's not too long a gap between such work. Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin. So with that said and those very positive remarks, we move to the next matter on our program, which is just to have a few brief reflections from the KAZA Partner States on the elephant survey and what it means for their respective countries, and any additional remarks. And with that said, we kindly request the Honorable Minister Botswana to offer remarks.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Hello. Muliwanji. You didn't respond. I thank you very much for the opportunity to give you some reflections from Botswana on this very interesting, very much needed survey report. And I would like to just start off by appreciating the fact that this is an instrument that in Botswana, when we talk about our transformational development agenda, we talk about one of the most important things that we attend to is building our nation, our country, and driving development programming and approaches and methodologies towards a knowledge-based economy, where our policies, our legislation, our programs, and every intervention that we come up with, to propel, economic growth, livelihood improvement, protection of our people. We're talking about knowledge-based economy where we can be able to avail the necessary data at the right time, enhance research, and be able to have reference to data for any policy and any program that we advance. I must say that this is part of the Botswana's research agenda that emphasizes on doing new things in a new way and new ways of thinking, and actually, the availability of data and innovation around how we do business is very critical for us. I make these remarks and also want to appreciate the opportunity we were given as Botswana to host this survey, in Botswana, and to have our facilities and different programs actually, being home to the different activities. And we do align with the study because, like I said, it's of benefit to our development programming. But most importantly, in advancing sustainable conservation, we're talking about a tool that will help us to educate the whole world out there that what we are doing is science-based, is well-informed, is credible, is precise, and it can be depended upon. I'm thinking about CITES right now. I'm thinking about, all the other things that are happening in the space of conservation. So it is with so much pleasure that we are receiving information that the methodology has been tested and proven to be credible, so the results are credible. I want to appreciate the fact that, this survey touched on different sectoral mandates, that are outside of conservation, but are related to conservation and are very important. Agriculture, we are talking about driving development programs that are able to harmoniously bring together, livestock management, livestock husbandry, animal husbandry, and crop production with wildlife. And I'm thankful that this has been addressed in this study. We have our Vice President in 2021 launching our Elephant Management Action Plan for 2021 to 2026, which is actually going to be aided and informed by this survey. And we are talking about, how we have been dealing with issues of law enforcement, on conservation that we do with our security forces, the police, the army, and the state intelligence. We will be having information to inform, our law enforcement, especially on dealing with poaching and so forth. And human-wildlife conflict, I think this is also, brought out very well. What this report will do will help us to actually enhance and intensify, the protection of both people and wildlife balanced together. We're also talking about the habitat, which I think is also important. But the community-based model that we drive through our community-based natural resource management program will also benefit from this survey. We will know how better to drive more beneficiation from this resource to our people. I am pleased to let you know that when we are preparing to come here, and at last notice, I requested that the district commissioner for Kasane, who is coordinator for all development programs through local authorities, attend, and Mamuremi is here in attendance. We also have the council chair, for Chobe District Council. They have to come and hear what this survey is presenting to us, because they deal with day-to-day planning and programming for the local people. They deal with elephant issues. They deal with human-wildlife conflict. They deal with people who lose lives, who lose their crops, because of elephant. And then also we have from the Kasane Kazungula redevelopment project, which is redesigning, realigning, and rearranging settlements around Kasane and Kazungula, which has to give room and consideration for animal movements, in the design of the patterns of living as we move infrastructure to promote tourism. I thought they should be here. But now going forward, we are going to make sure that we intensify a campaign where we will take this report, extrapolate the messages and the points and the highlights of it to different audiences, especially within different sectors. This report is going to help us to bring together agriculture in our space, bring land board and land management and water ministry into our space. It will help us bring, other sectors. So we have to be thinking beyond conservation, beyond what we've been doing, and incorporate other mandates that are critical in the development of our country. Also believe that SADC will benefit from this, so that they take KAZA and this report and other work that the TFCA is doing, and make sure that we position ourselves as KAZA as a benchmark. Because conservation happens here. The largest population of elephants happens here. Good governance happens in this region of Africa. So already other African states want to learn from us, and this is something that you can showcase to the world. I'm very happy that you all made it happen, and let me end by congratulating the research team. I don't think you ever slept during that time, and I've seen all good brains that have brought together this very well laid out research report. Congratulations, and all the supporters and all the donors and KAZA office and all of us, we've done a good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Kereng. With that, can we please invite Honorable Sibungo to come to the podium, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies. I'll stand by the protocol already as established. You know, as politicians, you have people that are driving you and giving instructions, so my PA was still running with the papers. I'm pleased, I'm very pleased and honored to be representing the Republic of Namibia and her people at this event at which we are launching the much-awaited KAZA White Elephant Survey report. As a politician, I would like to read my notes, because if I speak, I'll take more than 1 hour. For many years, there have been so much political support and the will to have coordinated survey undertaken in the KAZA Transfrontier Conservation Area, to count all the non-elephant areas at the same time. I'm so glad that we could finally undertake such survey and that we are now gathered here to witness the launch of the survey report. I'm very glad, and I cannot wait to learn more about the findings which I've just learned after the report on the status, the numbers in the distribution of elephants and other imported large mammal species, including the livestock across the survey area. Dear ministers, elephants are charismatic wild species which attract so much public attention and interest. Our KAZA supports the great number of the African savanna elephants, and it is an important global role play and the leader in the conservation of species. As much as elephants are globally important, and that our region hosts the largest elephant population, the conservation of elephants that at that scale brings with its challenges in form of human-elephant conflict and the transformation of the ecosystem, which may have negative implications for the other wild species. Many elephants in KAZA are found outside protected areas where they compete for range, land, and water resources with the local communities. These same elephants destroy crop fields, erodes local communities' livelihoods, and often kills local community members. Our partner countries have obligation to protect, conserve, and manage these elephants, and this comes at a huge financial cost. Ladies and gentlemen, in Namibia, our conservation approach to elephant is not to manage the species for further increase, but to protect them from the illegal killing while ensuring the sustainable benefits are obtained for the local living with the elephants. We also believe that a species is capable of contributing financially and economically to its conservation and management through sustainable utilization. Director of Ceremonies, human-wildlife conflict, particularly the conflict caused by elephants, are on the increase as elephant numbers are increasing and the elephants are recolonizing the areas from which they went extinct many years ago. In Namibia, we recently conducted a successful stakeholder consultation conference on human-wildlife conflict, and conflict caused by the elephant topped the list. We have resolved to undertake a number of strategic actions to address the conflict caused by the elephant and other wildlife species to ensure that the local communities do not carry the cost of elephant and wild conservation. The management and mitigation of the conflict caused by the elephants require huge financial resources, which are not always available. In conclusion, I'm pleased that the above the presence of cooperating partners, researchers, civil society organizations, community representatives. At this occasion, it is my wish and desire that we would collectively work towards the conservation of elephants and other wild species in our Transfrontier Conservation Area. while finding lasting and sustainable solution that has positive social, economic, and outcome for the communities and stakeholders sharing their land with the world resources. I also use this opportunity to call for global support for sustainable, well-regulated use of elephants and other worldly resources for benefit of local communities. Sustainable, well-regulated use of wild resources have been a successful conservation model in Southern Africa, and today we witness the results of that in our region, suppose the largest population of elephants. With this Director of Ceremony, as I've said, as politicians we can speak more than 1 hour. I would finally express my appreciation for the cooperating partners, the partner countries and all stakeholders who made it possible for us to have conducted the first ever coordinated survey of the elephants in our region. I wish to call upon everyone present here to make use of the survey results to effectively plan for the conservation of the wildlife species. I believe that the results will inform us about the areas important for the elephants and other wild species, and that we would use this information in policy making, which would ensure harmonious coexistence between wildlife and local communities. I thank you. God bless SADC.
Thank you, Honorable Sipungo. With that, I'd like to invite up Chairperson of the KAZA Ministerial Committee, Honorable Sikumba, for his remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much again. I will not belabor to speak long because I actually did make some of my remarks when I was doing my welcome remarks. But obviously, to just weigh in on Zambia specific, obviously our takeaways from this survey report that we have. For starters, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to agree and appreciate the fact that this particular survey the elephant survey itself will be used as the first ever baseline survey that we have done. And I also appreciate the fact that in 2014 and 2015, yes, indeed, we had a survey done by the IUCN, but this obviously was just a consolidation of reports from various partner states with different methodologies. But we strongly feel that with the start of this particular survey being launched today, well, which we have launched rather, will give us an opportunity for future surveys to be done properly. Now, the other interesting thing that I actually came out from the presentation, and thank you to the coordinator, was the very aspect of new findings. Now, this is obviously the issues of wildlife and livestock parity. I noticed from one of our sites, which is in Kafue National Park, the pressure that we're getting out of, is it Mumbwa West or East? I correct them sometimes. We seem to getting a lot of wildlife around that area. Now, that in itself speaks to issues of encroachment, issues of population pressure within the national park, which obviously we do not want to have a lot of human habitation in the park. What will happen is that we're going to have increased human-wildlife conflict. But also, probably for the purpose of my colleagues from the media, what you saw there, not that the numbers in Zambia are too low, 3,000 is a big number, but you also need to understand that Zambia today is home of 20 national parks, and the stronghold, we politicians will always say, what is your stronghold? I think our stronghold for elephant population is that of North Luangwa, which is North Park, South Luangwa National Park, as well as the Lower Zambezi. So a combination of all those obviously would be speaking to, or probably flirting with the likes of Botswana, getting close to the numbers of 131,000 elephants. But more so, just to get to understand that this particular issue that we saw here, especially in the issues of having increased human habitation within the GMAs and the national parks, is something that we need to be worried about as ministers in charge of wildlife. And we also know that these particular elephants, by very nature, are very migratory. So at any given time, this time around here in Livingstone, Those of you who've been here probably a day or two would agree with me that around this area, there's a lot of elephants that are roaming around. And I mean, we call them our paymasters. They enjoy the freedom of way, but we should make sure that we take good care of them without having to harm our people. Human-wildlife conflict indeed has been something that has been topical. With this particular data that we have, informed scientific information would be able to now get us to understand how best to console. I'm always torn between the issues of, do you have to compensate human-wildlife conflict victim, or you have to console them? But I think consolation is much better, because you cannot compensate loss of life. So we are in talks within the region. In as much as we have this survey today, we are actually looking at coming up with a standard within KAZA that will see how best we could console the victims of human-wildlife conflict. I do believe and understand that Namibia has actually started doing something. We are yet to learn from them. I know Botswana is also doing something. But from our end as Zambia, we're trying to see how best we could legislate this particular consolation for human-wildlife conflict. Last but not least, I did mention that I had spoken much earlier, but to thank our host country, Botswana. Botswana really does host our Secretariat, and it was home of this particular survey. Minister Kareng, we appreciate your gesture, and we're looking forward to having many more of such surveys dotted across the KAZA region, not only for elephants, as it were, but I think what is important, and if I picked up something from the survey, we're also looking at other habitat. We're talking about the antelopes, we're talking about the cats, and all these other very nice, good animals that we have, which we call our own as KAZA and as Africa. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thought I could just weigh in on the Zambia-specific takeaways on this particular survey, and I'm looking forward for us to actually do a deep dive on this particular survey with the help of our coordinator and see how best we could manage this natural resource that we have. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Sikumba. With that, we kindly request that Head of Delegation, Zimbabwe, Director General, Dr. Mangwanya, to please come and give us your remarks. Thank you.
Allow me to say all protocols observed. We are talking of wildlife heritage for the future and for the present generation and the future generation. This is a very topical issue. Now that we know what we have in KAZA, 520,000 square kilometers, we have got elephants. From the calculations which I was doing here, it shows we have got roughly around 54.9% of the world population of African elephant, which is a score on us because we actually have got more than half of the world population. Ladies and gentlemen, the survey results that we have here, we are going to actually use them for strategic planning framework of the conservation and management of elephants in KAZA TFCA. The task which has been already undertaken is underway. And from this, I think we're actually going to talk of issues based on signs or facts, proven facts. The policies that we are going to actually come up with, especially when we are talking of the overpopulation or overabundance of elephants and the effects on human beings like human-wildlife conflict, we are actually basing on the statistics that are actually proven. We seem to have a serious crisis when we go to CITES. We are always on the receiving end, but we have got facts here which are actually very clear on what is happening. The overpopulation of some of these jumbos, you know, they destroy the habitat, not for themselves only, but for even other species. And now when we actually have these facts laid down, no one should argue when you talk of sustainable use. We should actually derive some benefits from these animals that we are heavily looking after. But I know the moment you raise these issues, we are in trouble. Right now, we have got stockpiles of ivory. We cannot even dispose of them or beneficiate on them, because they are even coming in to disturb domestic marketing of the same things, the stocks that we have. But I'm happy right now that we now know what we have, and only what is known can be protected. Only what is known can be planned for. And at this stage, I'm very impressed with what we have, and hats off to the technical team, the Secretariat of KAZA, as well as all those behind the scenes. Job well done. It's going to make our lives very easy. And it is also my hope that our financiers or donors are going to continuously fund us periodically to carry on this exercise, which will inform the planning processes and the way to go when we have got these facts. Otherwise, as Zimbabwe, we are very happy, and we actually know that as KAZA, we have got a tool when it comes to debating about the elephants, because no one can actually dispute what we have, because it was done by experts. I thank you.
Thank you, Gigi. Last but certainly not least, Head of Delegation, Dr. Rui Lisboa. If we could have your remarks, thank you.
Muito boa tarde. Jumela Ma, Jumela Ra, Mascate, good afternoon. Permitam-me dizer que estão observados todos os protocolos.
Just allow me to say that all the protocols were taken care.
Quero, em nome de Sua Excelência, Senhor Ministro da Cultura e Turismo,
I would like to express my opinion in the name of the Minister of Tourism from Angola.
Manifestar a minha gratidão e agradecer aos restantes países membros.
I would like to thank all the member states
desta iniciativa regional da área transfronteiriça de conservação do
regional
Kavango
initiative,
Zambezi,
the TFC for KAZA,
pelo grande esforço que tem sido feito
for the great efforts that was done
para a proteção desta espécie emblemática da
to
fauna
protect
mundial,
this kind of species,
que é o
the
elefante.
wildlife, which is the elephant.
Em função da guerra no nosso país,
regarding to the civil war in Angola,
este número decresceu substancialmente.
This number decreased substantially.
Antes da independência, em 75, havia mais de 75 mil elefantes.
Before the Angola independence in 1975, there were more than 70,000 elephants.
Nas paisagens naturais da componente angolana
in the
do
KAZA
Kavango
region
Zambezi.
of Angola.
Avaliar aqui que no atual censo, este número está avaliado em 6 mil elefantes.
The right census says that we have 6,000 elephants.
Aqui podemos já manifestar alguma satisfação, porque este número aumentou relativamente ao
We can be
censo
happy now
anterior,
because this number is increasing.
mas ainda estamos muito longe
We still far
do
away
número
for
registrado antes de
the right numbers
1975.
1975.
Pensamos que, alcançada a paz em Angola,
After the peace agreement,
o país está em melhores condições de comparticipar neste esforço
now we are in the better position to participate in this kind of efforts
para a proteção do elefante,
to protect the elephants,
criando ambiente seguro
to create a safe environment for the elephants,
para facilitar o retorno do elefante
to facilitate the return of the elephants to Angola
nas lindas paisagens dos parques
in the
nacionais
beautiful landscape of Angola,
de Luengue-Luiana e Mavinga,
mentioned Luengue-Luiana National Park and Mavinga National Park.
principalmente os elefantes que falam português.
Mainly those elephants that speak Portuguese.
Gostaria aqui também de realçar neste sentido,
I would like to emphasize here,
se a senhora ministra do Ambiente do Botswana me autorizar,
if the Minister of Environment from Botswana can allow me
entendimento entre Angola e o Botswana
to make an arrangement between Botswana and Angola
para uma certa oferta por parte do Botswana
so that Botswana can offer
Não sei se a digníssima ministra do Ambiente já me autorizou ou não
I don't
para
know if
realçar
I
este
can get the
detalhe.
permission from the minister for the offering. Thank you.
Okay. Entendi que estou autorizado
I understood that I was allowed
em realçar o entendimento entre Angola e Botswana,
to make the agreement between Angola and Botswana.
que é uma oferta de 8.000 elefantes
We like to get the offer of 8,000 elephants from
por
Botswana
parte
to
do
Angola
Botswana para o nosso país.
so that we can increase the numbers in our country.
Isto significa que provavelmente no próximo censo
Probably in the next census,
o número de elefantes em Angola
the number
vai
of elephants in
duplicar.
Angola it will double.
E isto vai ser muito bom
It will be good
para toda a região
for all
do
the
Kavango.
KAZA region.
Gostaríamos também de realçar
I would like also to refer
que a conservação e o desenvolvimento sustentável
that the conservation and sustainable,
devem caminhar juntos
they have to work together
para que se proteja de facto a vida selvagem,
so that we protect the wildlife
mas também se melhore a condição de vida das comunidades,
and also we can improve the livelihood of the communities.
que são os verdadeiros guardiões
They are the
desta
one who
riqueza
protect
natural.
these riches.
Por isso, sem fugir do tópico,
Without running away from the topic,
quero aproveitar esta oportunidade
I just want to take advantage of this opportunity
de convidar o setor privado
to
de
invite
Botswana, Namíbia, Zambia
private
e
sector of
Zimbabwe
Botswana, Namibia and Zimbabwe
de participarem no primeiro fórum de investidores
participate in the first investor forums in Angola.
que vai decorrer de
It
27
take place
a
from
30 de
27th
setembro,
to 30th September this year,
precisamente para conhecerem as potencialidades
so that you can see and appreciate the potentialities in Angola
e as oportunidades de negócio
and the
na
business
região
opportunity
angolana
in the
do
region of
Kavango.
Kavango.
Muito obrigado
Thank
por
you
esta
very much for
oportunidade.
this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Lisboa. With that, I'm very sorry to say that because we are running behind the initially planned time for various reasons, we will be having to reduce the questions and answer session time down to about 20 minutes. So we will open up for questions and answers for the next 20 minutes, but there will be ample opportunity. We have set up a platform on the Kavangozambezi.org website. If you would like to submit any questions regarding the presentation or the report, which will now be published on the KAZA website today and openly available for download. For media, you will have ample opportunity after the event to speak to heads of delegation regarding any questions, and our experts, Darren Potgieter, the coordinator, and technical experts, our executive director after the event. That said, we have to really regrettably open up to a very limited number of questions for the next 20 minutes. Colleagues on Zoom, please do type your questions in. We'll absorb the number of questions possible in this limited time. With that said, we open up the floor for any questions. Thank you. That was unexpected. Does anyone want to start us off with any questions regarding the results of the survey, remarks from any of the partner states on what the survey meant for them and for elephant conservation in country and in the KAZA landscape? I see no hands. African Parks in the back, please just press the button on your mic, any one of the two on top, and ask your question. Thank you.
Yeah, moderator, thank you very much.
Into the mic, please.
Thank you very much. Observed, honorable ministers and everyone else that is here.
We can't hear you, I'm afraid. Please speak into the mic. You can be seated.
Okay. My name is James Milanzi, and I'm the country director for African Parks, Zambia. Just to appreciate that this is a comprehensive survey, and thanks to everybody that was involved. And African Parks recently signed an agreement for 20 years to co-manage Kafue National Parks. And we thank the Zambian government for that trust. Looking at the populations that we have, definitely they're quite low, not to water down what the Honorable Minister said, that we do have large populations elsewhere. But considering that the neighboring landscape has large herds, we try and ensure that we secure the area for the next 20 years, work with all the partners, and considering that I think also within the landscape, we see that Siomangwezi has an increasing population. I think in 2014, the results were quite low, but we ensure that we work together with them, the landscape-wise, manage it. But one key question that we need to look at is the interface between humans and the emerging issues. Human-wildlife conflict is going to increase as populations increase. So we really need to delve into how we manage that, especially when we consider the 10% carcass ratio. This might rise, and we need to understand why is it increasing. Is it because of retaliatory killings by the people, or is it because of poaching? We can manage the poaching, but the retaliatory killings could increase as human population increase, as well as elephant population increase. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those much appreciated remarks. I think that was more of a statement and food for thought. Or would you like Zambia to perhaps elaborate on some of the issues that you've raised? Sir. I think it's a statement. Thank you. So thank you very much for those remarks. Botswana?
Thank you very much. I think we can just agree with him and much more, because already we have human-wildlife conflict. It's a very, very big and disturbing problem. Right now in Botswana, the president has commissioned a subcommittee of cabinet, and there's 4 ministries: environment, entrepreneurship, trade, and agriculture. Because the concern is that if farmers cannot commercialize farming and trade and become successful, and then agriculture is not productive, so food security is threatened. And then trade, within the space of agriculture, business, and every associated, economic sector. Then we need to talk about how better to address the issue of this conflict beyond animals killing people, beyond them just roaming and disturbing daily lives. But then in terms of economic sectoral impacts, of the growing numbers, of incidences, it's much more important for us to emphasize the need for us to collaborate more with relevant ministries and relevant institutions, but much more banking on the capacities and enablement and support we can get from our partners. I think it's something that we need to take as a very important action. How do we collaborate to ensure that we can protect the different economic sectors from human-wildlife conflict?
Thank you, Honorable Kering, for those remarks. Do we have any other questions from the floor? Is that Pantera?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for a well-articulated presentation. Just wanted to make a comment. With the increase of elephants that we have in these communities, from the little information that we are getting from the communities, there's need of addressing human-wildlife conflicts, and we also need to come up with strategies and mitigation measures that are going to help increase the value of these elephants. At the moment, with some communities within KAZA region, it is found that some communities do not appreciate the value of elephants because they are seeing them as potential distractors of their livelihoods. So we also need to come up with alternative sources of livelihood or alternative mitigation measures that will improve the livelihoods of local communities in as much as we are preserving the elephants that we have in these communities. Thank you. Submit.
Thank you for those thoughts and those remarks, which are also well noted. And I think they speak a lot to, at KAZA level, as you've been participating in the process, for example, to look at development of the livelihoods diversification strategy for KAZA. It speaks also to the strategic planning framework for the conservation management of elephants, I think which everyone has copies of in front of you, as well as the policy brief, which is looking at issues of connectivity, which was recently endorsed by partner states and is also shared with you today. So thank you for those remarks. Any other questions from the floor? We have been holding on to this report for so long, waiting for this launch. We have announced the results. Our partner states are here, and nobody is asking any questions. Do we have questions online, colleagues at the back? Is there anything from the Zoom? Please do.
Silence is not a good thing for us. So I just wanted to comment on the last speaker about alternative livelihoods and to mention that, you know, in Botswana, through the community-based natural resource management program, where we support communities with livelihood programs of different kinds, you know, the whole program of, you know, the hunting quotas that we issue to the communities, then they trade with the resource, and then they are able to do other income, you know, generation activities, you know, as communities and through the community trusts. Seems to be, I mean, it has proven to be working very well also in Namibia, I know. Now, alternative livelihoods also, we have conservation trust fund that is generated, you know, to support communities affected by elephants. And the fund is also availed to communities to do, you know, conservation, to, you know, help to protect themselves from you know, the elephants through fencing, through provision of alternative or additional water, you know, points for the animals, but also to do alternative livelihood programs that can, you know, complement what they lose if they are not able to go to the farms and stuff like that. I thought I should mention also that through KAZA, the support that we got from the German government, you know, also targeted alternative livelihood, you know, programs during COVID-19. And I think it's important for us to actually acknowledge that the importance of getting programs that target, you know, alternative livelihood, you know, interventions for the communities.
Thank you, Honorable Kereng. We also have a question or comment from the ministry in Namibia. Chief Warden, please go ahead.
Thank you, Netsai. And of course, much appreciation to the whole survey team for a very informative presentation. Of course, it has used quite a lot of interesting information, which us as partner states, we need to take into consideration. I think my comment is more on the, I've checked on the maps, which were in terms of humane settlement, particularly in the Zambezi region, which forms a very significant part of the KAZA TFCA in terms of connectivity. And quite a number of livestock that we have seen in the region, particularly in the eastern part of the region. And Namibia as a country should be happy to inform the House that we are fully committed on elements of landscape connectivity. And 2 years ago, we have launched a strategy on securing wildlife corridors, which I think it's one of the key activity in terms of managing the whole ecological landscape and ensure that there is movement of elephants between Angola, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. And as a country, we stand firm in ensuring that protection of habitats of these key iconic species remains vital. I so submit. Thank you.
Thank you for those remarks, Namibia. We do have one question through the Zoom participation from Samuel Vassa. Does the report include a map of where carcasses were found by category? And Darren, I'll hand that over to you.
Thank you, Netsai. So yes, in the report we do provide a map at the scale of KAZA that distinguishes between fresh and recent and old and very old carcasses. And within the aerial survey database, we have very specific details on the locations of all of these things at finer scales as well.
Thanks, Russell. Samuel, we hope that addresses your question. We see two additional, and then we may wrap up the session and move on with the program on the back. Please go ahead.
I've been asked a question via WhatsApp, which I'd like to pass on to Darren, if I may. Thank you.
Okay, we'll do that after this question, Russell.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for a great presentation, and I'm really looking forward to reading the report. I just wanted to check, so it's more of a technical question maybe. With this survey, can we compare it to previous surveys from the different countries that have been done in the past, or do we need to now wait for another full KAZA survey to then be able to look at the trends in population?
Thank you very much. And yeah, it's a very good question, and the response is going to be quite nuanced. So the correct way in terms of comparability, and it's the fundamental reason why the survey was carried out this way, is that it sets a baseline in which future surveys will be able to be comparable across this region. Having said that, many of the areas have used exactly the same methods in the past and therefore are comparable, and there are some differences for certain regions. Botswana in particular has got slight differences in methodology, but overall the impact of that on the results is something that, as we suggested in the report, needs to be investigated further, and it's something we've discussed with the KAZA Secretariat as well, as a meta study that looks at these differences and the implications of different methods on comparability between surveys. But in terms of elephant populations and trends, given the confidence limits that we have in the estimates, I think largely we are able to make fair assessments of what's happening over time with elephant populations. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Anna? Does that answer your question sufficiently?
Yep, no, that's great. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Then we go to Dr. Taylor. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Netsai. So the question being asked regards the aggregated group of elephants you found, the 500 odd north of Sioma. Was that part of the design? And if not, why was it not in the design?
All right, thank you. Yeah, again, a very good question. So it was not part of the design. The area where those elephants were found were outside of the areas that had previously been surveyed in the past. And so previous aerial surveys focused on the protected areas, but it's also known from other surveys that these elephants in the recent time have aggregated in large herds and can move around quite widely. And they do also move from this region in Zambia into Angola. They've also been surveyed in the wet season, and that region of Sioma is primarily a wet season elephant range. The national park itself is very dry, and the elephants move out of there in search of water. And so they can disperse quite widely, and it's also been encountered in previous surveys where during the systematic sampling of the survey area, they didn't encounter elephants, and then conducted this type of reconnaissance flight to look for the elephants based on collar data, and then have found these large groups. So yeah, we were very pleased to be able to locate this large herd, and surprisingly it was more elephants than what had been seen there before, with 508 in one individual herd. Thanks.
Thank you, Darren.
A last a last question. There was one hand up before yours. So we'll take these last two questions and then we'll move on. If there are any additional ones, you can channel them to the Secretariat or visit kavangozambezi.org, where we've set up a page where you can submit technical questions once you've had time to browse the report. So we'll start with the African Elephant Specialist Group. Malvin, please go ahead.
Thank you. Is this data going to be shared? And if it's going to be shared, is it possible to make it open source? And can you share with the public some of the challenges that you encountered and what you feel or you are likely going to change for the future surveys? Thank you.
Yeah, that question, the last part, takes us back to some interesting memories from survey implementation in terms of challenges. Perhaps we'll break that up into two. I'll give over to Dr. Nyambe, our Executive Director, regarding publication of the data, and then we'll come to Darren to talk about a fraction maybe of of the challenges we faced with survey implementation. I do recall that early on in the survey, during planning for implementation, the remark was, we don't know what challenges we'll face until we face them. So there's certainly some remarks, I'm sure, from Darren on that one. Over to you, Dr. Nyambe.
Thank you, Netsai, and thank you very much, Marvin, for your question. I always say that it's like we're building an aeroplane whilst flying it. There's a lot of lessons that have emerged, but you have to understand that there is a firm commitment by the partner states to science. We've facilitated data sharing agreements. We've facilitated collaboration. The policy brief that you saw, for example, is a result of more than 10 NGOs collaborating with the partner states. Just this week, I was meeting in Katimamulilo with the vice chancellors of universities in the 5 partner states, talking about this particular issue and related matters. We shall be guided as KAZA Secretariat on how we deal with this issue by the partner states, but understanding very well that partner states would like to see an advancement of research and knowledge generation arising out of this huge body of knowledge. So for now, allow me to just say that there's obviously need to have an open, ideally an open access arrangement, but you have to understand also that there are security issues for some aspects of this data. So it's kind of early to give a definitive answer. We have to be guided. The focal points will be meeting. The honorable ministers are going to issue a joint communique, and you appreciate that one of the issues they're talking to is invitation of different stakeholders on how to usefully apply the various aspects in the data set. So it's kind of long-winded. The commitment is there, and of course one of the uses of this whole survey is the fact that, and you mentioned this, it's going to be incorporated in the African Elephant database. That is already a monumental contribution, but we want to see more fine-scale utilization of the various components of the data. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the second part of your question regarding challenges, in the survey report, we've documented in great detail the challenges that are relevant to a repeat survey. So there's an appendix that summarizes it. But just in brief, as you can imagine, with some of those figures that highlight the scale of the survey, the number of people involved, the amount of fuel that had to be transported across 5 countries, aircraft, all that need permits. So yeah, there was a huge amount of organization required, and the challenges really stemmed from the very compressed time frame that we had to be able to complete the survey. So as I mentioned, the survey has to be done in the dry season and before rain, and so it really was a very compressed and intense period with a lot of issues. As Netsai alluded to things that you cannot anticipate that came up, but through very strong collaboration, we were able to continually adapt, and we were able to complete the survey successfully. But yeah, as I said, the details are summarized there, and I think it's a very useful reference for anyone doing a future repeat of the survey.
Thanks, Darren. And I think maybe to highlight that the reason why we were able to successfully complete this survey is because of the dedication and extremely high level of prioritization that the partner states placed on this project. And because of it, every challenge we faced, there was an adaptive management strategy because it was a top priority issue at all necessary levels, at all stages of implementation of the survey. And I think that's very important to note, as well as the very important role of our implementing partners, because there was so much shared interest in ensuring successful implementation that they were there to support us every step of the way. So to acknowledge the collaboration, or maybe harp on it a little bit more. We'll take one last question from WWF, and then we will need to move to the next session. Please go ahead, sir.
Thanks a lot. This is a tremendous effort from the partner states as well as the technical team. First one is, yes, this shows that we do have a vast resource in terms of elephants. So probably the thinking in terms of sustainable wildlife economy as the first one. Then the second one, the study also depict some crucial issues around land use, especially the wildlife and livestock farming interface. Probably something that would also need to embrace in our management from now going forth. However, just one minor question that I have is, to what extent did you depict land use change? Probably over years, especially thinking of the case of Zambia, for instance, where you notice that elephants were concentrated in one area and not probably distributed in the traditional landscape. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. So during the serial survey, the observers didn't make any record of human activities. That was produced in that map from satellite image. So those sorts of static indicators are more easily determined from remote sensing. And it was a reason, well, the reason for that was determined early on in the survey design so as not to distract the observers from their primary objective, which was counting elephants and other wildlife. But so further to your question, I think it's important and quite possible to do further analyses looking at land use change over time and how that has potentially impacted what we see in terms of elephant numbers and distribution today. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I think with permission, we can move to close this component of the program. Thanks, Darren. Okay. So we invite then Honorable Sikumba to give remarks regarding the joint communique and survey, no, on the joint communique from the partner states. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Netsai. I'll try by all means to deliver this communique very, very quickly. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as per usual and standard procedure, after deliberations such as this one, we need to now read out a communique, obviously, which is a joint communique agreed by all member states of KAZA. So the launch of the KAZA Elephant Survey Report Joint Communique, dated 31st August 2023, Livingstone, Zambia. And it reads as follows. We, the designated ministers responsible for wildlife management in the Kavango, Zambezi, KAZA, Transfrontier Conservation Area, TFCA that is, partner states of Angola, Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe convened today, the 31st of August 2023 in Livingstone, Zambia, to launch the much anticipated 2022 KAZA Elephant Survey report. The Elephant Survey is a strategic activity of the 2019 KAZA Strategic Planning Framework for the conservation and management of elephants. This framework seeks to harmonize partner states' efforts in the management of KAZA's global significant contagious elephant population. KAZA holds over 50% of the African savanna elephants, which is the largest single elephant population in the world. In April 2019, partner states directed the KAZA Secretariat to mobilize resources to conduct the first ever synchronized KAZA Elephant Survey. This directive was subsequently reaffirmed and amplified by the KAZA heads of state during the KAZA Elephant Summit of 7th May 2019, centered on the theme, and I quote, "towards a common vision for management of our elephants," end quote. Among the resolutions of the KAZA Elephant Summit was a commitment to conduct transboundary and synchronized KAZA-wide aerial survey of elephants and other wildlife population according to the standardized methodologies, ensuring compatibility across the landscapes. Key to the surveys was a collective commitment to a robust scientific process in pursuit of a credible survey outcome. We are pleased to report that the survey design and approach conform to the Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, popularly known as CITES, monitoring of illegal killing of elephants, MIKE aerial survey standards. The survey results, when compared with previous surveys, reflect a stable population with a net effect of increases, stability, and possible decrease in different parts of the survey area. We highlight the following key insights of the survey. Number one, population estimate. The survey estimated an elephant population of 227,900, which is plus or minus 7%, as you may have heard. This is an increase of over 10,000 compared to the results from the 2016 IUCN Elephant Survey Status Report. Number two, precision. The percentage relative precision of plus or minus 7.34% was achieved for the elephant estimate, indicative of a sound survey design. Number three, elephant carcasses. The overall carcass ratio is 10.4%, which is suggestive of a high level of mortality. This underscores the need for further investigation and analysis and strengthening the current and future efforts to address unnatural mortalities. Number four, other wildlife and livestock. The survey also produced population estimates for the species such as buffalo, giraffe, hartebeest, hippopotamus, impala, roan, sable, wildebeest, and zebra. Importantly, estimates of the domestic livestock herds reflected the ratio of wildlife and domestic stock approaching parity, highlighting growing pressures on water and rangelands and insignificance of measures to promote integrated land use planning, coexistence, and cross-sectorial policy harmonization. Beyond being a scientific milestone achieved within budget and schedule, this survey provides invaluable insights for the coordinated management of elephants and other wildlife. It holds potential to shape policy and management measures at diverse levels, including transboundary and national, to ensure long-term persistence of wildlife and biodiversity and socioeconomic development. In line with these findings and the varied potential application of the knowledge generated by the survey, we, Intalia, number one, direct the KAZA Secretariat to coordinate efforts towards developing a detailed transboundary action plan for the already existing strategic planning framework for the conservation and management of elephants. Number two, pledge to translate the survey findings into a practical policy measures, supportive legislation, and detailed action plans at varied levels. Number three, acknowledge the heterogeneous nature of the results and commit to the internal reviews aiming to tailor suitable actions and address underlying challenges while capitalizing on potential opportunities and investments arising from the survey. And number 4, invite mutual beneficial partnership that will assist in the use of the wealth of knowledge generated by the survey to advance the KAZA vision. Preparations of the survey, including fundraising, were initiated in 2019. We commend the Secretariat, Partner States, and the KAZA Elephant Sub-Working Group for rallying together in resource mobilization, enabling the survey to be conducted in August to October 2022, in line with the survey design and methodology. The survey cost nearly US $3.2 million. We applaud the survey coordination led by WorldSense, the contracted service providers, our technical staff from the partner states, the World Wide Fund, WWF, the implementation partners of the survey, and the KAZA Secretariat for all the work that brought us here. We also thank our heads of state for their visionary leadership in the elephant conservation and management and the resolutions of the KAZA Elephant Summit, whose priorities firmly remain on our agenda as we implement the recommendations of the survey. We acknowledge the KAZA Elephant Survey donors and the international cooperation partners comprising the Paul G. Allen Family Foundation, the Federal Republic of the German's Ministry of Economic Cooperation for Development through KfW, the Dutch Postcode Lottery through the Dream Fund Project, USAID Combating Wildlife Crime in Namibia, and the KAZA Area Project, the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, the Environmental Protection Area Authority of Sharjah, United Arab Emirates, the US Fish and Wildlife Services, World Wildlife Fund US Panthera, and the EU-funded CITES MIC program. In conclusion, we reaffirm our commitment to implementing the recommendations of the survey. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Honorable Sikumba. Before coming to our host country, I think today host in 2 different ways, host of the KAZA Secretariat since inception and host of the operations room for the KAZA Elephant Survey at Parks and Wildlife in Kasane. We will invite Dr. Nyambe for some very brief last remarks. Thank you, Dr. Nyambe.
Thank you very much, Netsai. My task this afternoon, late afternoon, is very simple. It's ready to extend our appreciation. The honorable ministers, senior government officials, and all those recognized in the protocols earlier established. And speaking on behalf of the KAZA Secretariat, I just want to say that, honorable ministers, we hear you loud and clear in terms of the directives stemming out of the communique. As Secretariat, we will endeavor to do the needful. I just want to give you a sense, and I'll be very brief, really. Team from Secretariat, those that are here, could you please stand up? And colleagues from the implementing partner, could you please stand up? That is WWF Namibia. Could you please stand up? WorldSense. The contributors of data that informed the design, could you please stand up? Anna, I see you. Those that are here. I guess the point I want to illustrate here, honorable ministers, is that this would not have been achieved without collective action, recognizing that there was shared interest, but also shared risk. And there are many others that are not, that I haven't recognized here, the focal points that were involved, the desk officers, but I just want to say that this would not have been possible without rallying together. And I just want to thank all of you for your kindness, support, professional collegiality, and most importantly, agreeing to be part of the shared risk. So thank you very much to you all. You may sit down. And I think to our Director of Ceremonies, who have had to be very tough on a number of occasions, I just want to thank you, Netsai, and everybody that you've been working with in making sure that this event was a success. Let me end here. Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Nyambe. And with that, may I invite Honorable Kereng to come and give us closing remarks. Following closure of the event, we request that you just sit for a minute longer so we can make some housekeeping announcements. Honorable Kereng, please.
Thank you very much. I have the honor to deliver the closing remarks and protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for joining us at this important launch of the 2022 KAZA Elephant Survey Report. We thank our hosts and chair of the KAZA, the Republic of Zambia, for bringing us here to Livingstone and facilitating virtual attendance of those who have participated online. I'm so happy because it's my first time ever in the land of Zambia. It's a correction of a problem that I've always lamented. Who will win, in bringing me to Zambia? I've been everywhere in this continent, but have not been to Zambia. So I think the elephant survey has really helped me, and because also, for the chair to be Zambia. As KAZA TFCA member states, we are pleased to announce that our primary objective of obtaining a precise and accurate estimate of the elephant population within the KAZA TFCA has been achieved. It has been achieved. Yes, thank you very much. Additionally, the secondary goals of estimating the number of and distribution of elephant carcasses, as well as population numbers of other large herbivores and their special distribution, have also been achieved. The fact that the survey is called and focused on elephants, but also touched on other animals, has also been a great achievement. Speaking on behalf of my fellow ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to share that we have now fulfilled one of the key resolutions of the 2019 Kasane Elephant Summit, which called for KAZA TFCA member states to conduct transboundary, and is quoted, to conduct transboundary, coordinated and synchronized KAZA wide aerial survey of elephants and other wildlife populations, according to standardized methodologies to allow comparability across the KAZA landscape. An output of a conference that has been actually addressed. We should all indeed be very proud of this massive undertaking, which is the first of its kind in the whole world. And as ministers, we are firmly dedicated to the implementation and to supporting actually the implementation of the ensuing recommendations across our respective countries, so that the results of this aerial survey benefits our people, the elephants, and the whole coexisting wildlife and habitats, and also to support, our livelihoods and beneficiation of this very, important resource. I must pause to mention that it is going to help us actually with our debates and preparation of our strong voice for the deliberations at the CITES, Convention. And recently I was in London to talk to the parliamentarians, to the UK Parliament, on a bill that wants to stop trophy hunting, importation. And we had to touch on the main issue, which was that the bill is not science-based. It's not informed by, science. It's not evidence-based. So when we have instruments like this report, I can talk to anybody and tell them we are doing the right thing. This is the right conservation, and we'll continue to build the voices of this sub-region, in that line. Director of Ceremonies, we are also confident that the survey results will be instructive to informing our collaborative efforts at transboundary level and in country, especially in addressing the priorities in our respective national elephant strategies and action plans that are ongoing in their respective countries. Information on the survey execution and compliance with standards is comprehensively provided in the report, and I think we have all appreciated the information in its detail, which is to guide how both state and non-state actors could maximize the use of data in this survey report for various interventions. And I want to include the researchers and academics as well. Ladies and gentlemen, you will agree that the report is quite comprehensive and is still to be fully digested for various purposes. I urge all of us to fully interrogate the data to ensure that KAZA Elephant strategic planning framework for the conservation and management of elephant is appropriately updated and actioned. As ministers, we are also committed to seeing how best the survey report will help inform or contribute to other priority matters within our countries at KAZA TFCA level, at SADC level, at continental level, and also at global level, including within the context of, among others, the United Nations Convention on Biodiversity, United Nations Framework on Climate Change, and CITES as well. This includes, among others, fostering human-wildlife coexistence, facilitating integrated land use planning, including science-based re-evaluation of fencing policies within the agriculture space, nurturing sustainable tourism development, promoting connectivity in the landscape, and aligning with the various objectives of the KAZA Elephant Conservation and Management Framework, as well as transboundary policy priorities such as the SADC Law Enforcement Action Plans, the LEAP. We are pleased that the overall elephant population of the KAZA TFCA appears stable and is in fact higher than the previous estimates. However, at the same time, we are concerned with the high overall carcass ratios. It is crucial for our research institutions to further interrogate the data for what accounts for the spatial distribution and numbers of the carcasses, the underlying factors, and guide policymakers and practitioners through evidence-based research. Both as individual nations and as a collective, we must commit to addressing the underlying challenges by rigorously implementing recommendations of the survey and those from the ensuing research based on the survey data, which means this report or this survey is also going to give birth to a number of other surveys that will complement these findings. We wish to acknowledge the technical staff from our wildlife departments, contracted teams, external reviewers, the African Elephant Special Group, SADC Secretariat, World Wildlife Fund as the survey implementing partner, and the various donors for their respective roles and contributions. May we give them a round of appreciation, please? And I want to end by really commending our heads of states. You know, for 5 countries to work together and agree and not fight and not have conflict and have a common goal, it's something that's very unique. In another part of this world, we will be fighting. Botswana and Angola and Zambia. Yesterday it was Zambia and Zimbabwe for a resource, because natural resources in Africa especially have become the source of conflict and war. Can we just appreciate this TFCA because it's so unique? 5 countries, the largest, but still so harmonious, peaceful, and progressive. Viva KAZA! Thank you very much for attending. Thank you for participation. Thank you for the feedback and the questions. And let me release you and say, let's go and take this report findings further. Let's be encouraged that now we have data, that you are not going to just be, groping in darkness, developing those programs and policies and legislations. And we together will come back and celebrate greater successes for our people through this initiative, through this survey report. I thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. So with those wonderful and encouraging words, that ends our event today. On the housekeeping issues, the first one is we kindly and humbly request our heads of delegations from the 5 partner states to please remain behind for at least 15 to 20 minutes to allow the media that are present to engage you and in a couple of questions. If that's in order, we kindly request all heads of delegation to stay behind. You can remain in the special lovely area we have assigned for you for a few minutes. The media will have a few minutes to set up themselves, and we request about 15 to 20 minutes of your time for that. Lastly, we are hosting a number of delegates here, so everyone who is hosted under the KAZA Secretariat as guests at, I was going to say Travel Lodge, at Protea tonight, your dinner arrangements are slightly different. So everyone we are hosting here who was meant to have dinner here hosted by KAZA will be going to the Boma at Avani for dinner at 7. That means there is transport leaving for all of you who are staying here tonight, hosted by us, at 6:45 outside the hotel at the reception area. So 6:45, please be there for a yummy Boma dinner tonight at Avani. This applies also to our delegates hosted at the Radisson Hotel.